Hi, my name is Courtney Vidalier, and I'll be doing the Fantasy Book Talk for EDCI 310. Do you like trains? Have you ever ridden on a train? Do you think you could have a great adventure if you rode on a train that was 11 kilometers long? Well, our main character, Will, does have a great adventure in the story, The Boundless by Kenneth Opel. He rides this train with his father, and he witnesses a murder. Well, the murderer, throughout the whole plot, tries to catch him because he has a special treasure that he wants. So let me read an excerpt from this so you can see how Will is having to escape the murderer throughout the whole story. With his one shoe, Will is clumsy and he can barely see his feet. "Keys, all I want," grasps Brogan. "Give me that key, boy, I'll let you live." Will knows he's lying. He casts a wild look at the woods, 5 yards to his left, and doubts he can make it in time before Brogan catches him. On his other side, the train is an unbroken wall, but for the gap beneath cars. The quick puff of Brogan's breath are getting louder. Will gives himself no more time to think, just throws himself under the train. The steel rails punch the breath from his belly as he lands atop of them. Head against the gravel, he scrambles furiously. The smell is sharp in his nostrils. He's halfway through when a hand seizes his ankle and drags him back. He digs his fingernails into the gravel, then grabs the rail and holds tight, kicking. His second shoe flies off, and he heard a curse as his foot connects with Brogan's face. Twisting, he kicks again. Throughout the whole story and throughout the whole plot, we see that Will is trying to escape the murderer, and the murderer just keeps chasing him from boxcar to boxcar. So if you want to read more, read Kenneth Opel's The Boundless. Do you think wearing costumes and jewelry make people think they have more power over others? Or do you think that it makes them not loyal or can't be trusted? Well, in our story, if this is a trilogy by Sarah Prius, Moonkind, we have our main character, Fur. She has a hard time trusting her best friend, Rook, and also the lords and ladies that are under her. She is the lady of the Summerland and has vowed to save her people without the deception of the glamoury. So she's asking the lords and ladies to take off the glamoury and keep the promise to the land. Well, the lords and ladies in this story don't want to do that, and they bring on bad consequences to the land. Let me read an excerpt so you can see what Fur has to deal with in this story. "You are a lady," she told herself. This false glamoury had no power over her. The room darkened, the glamouries faded, and maybe the Puck's ability to see truly had rubbed off on her, because she saw the lords and ladies as they really were. Some were bent like gnarled trees, others were pale and faded, almost like ghosts, still others were squat and rough-skinned, like toads. They didn't look beautiful or noble anymore. All of them were stuck like statues, caught in the grip of the steel. "Come on," she whispered to herself, and stared toward the platform at the other end. The first time she had been here, the lords and ladies had stared at her in disgust and sniffed as they smelled something nasty. "Not a true lady at all," they whispered. "Part human," they sneered, but now they looked at her differently. Their eyes were wide as she passed, and felt them trying to pull away, as even the stilt pressed down upon them. They almost looked frightened. Well, she should be frightened, Fur figured. Their lands and their people were dying, and they would die too if the stilt kept spreading. She stopped and bent to peer at a hunched mole lord who had a long pink nose and a bald pink head patched with pelt-like black fur. The lord's eyes were tiny, but Fur truly saw the lord was afraid. So you can see here that Fur is trying to gain the land with the promise she made to her people without all the glamoury, but the lords and ladies don't want to listen to her. If you want to see the end of the story and how Fur sticks to her word, I would tell you to read Sarah Prius' Moonkind, which is a fantasy fiction novel. Do you always listen to your parents when they tell you to do something? Or do you ever question why they tell you certain things as you're growing up? Well, we have in this story, The Magistrum, The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. We have our main character, Callum, who does question his father because his father doesn't want him to have anything to do with magic, because the Magistrum had murdered his mother years ago, and his dad did not want him to be raised with magic or have anything to do with magic. So when the Iron Trail test came around, Callum was told to fail the test. However, he doesn't fail the test. He actually passes the test and becomes part of the Magistrum. Let me read an excerpt from the story so you can see how Cal does question how his daddy raised him. Cal spun back into the tornado, but it was too late. His concentration had been broken. His father had vanished. his last words hanging in the air. You don't know who you are. You stupid lizard, Cal yelled back, kicking one leg of the workstation. More papers slipped into the floor. The elemental went quiet. Cal fell back into Rufus's chair, putting his head in his hands. What had his father been saying? What could he have meant? Cal, you must listen to me. You don't know what you are. A shiver went down Cal's spine. Let me out, repeated the lizard. No, Cal yelled, glad to have a target for his rage. No, I'm not going to let you out. Just stop asking. The lizard watched beadily from its cage as Cal knelt down and began to pick up papers and gears from the model. Reaching for an envelope, Cal's fingers closed to a small package that must have been knocked off the table. He pulled it toward him when he noticed his father's unmistakably spidery handwriting yet again. It was addressed to William Rufus. Oh, Cal thought, a letter from Dad. That can't be good. Should he open it? The last thing he needed was his father saying crazy things to Master Rufus and begging for Cal to be sent home. Besides, Cal was already going to be in trouble for sneaking around, so maybe he couldn't get in much more trouble for opening mail. He cut the tape free with the jagged edge of the gear and unfolded a note very like the one he had received, and it read, Rufus, if ever you trusted me, if ever you felt any loyalty to me for my time as your student and for the tragedy we shared, you must bind Callan's magic before the end of the year. Alistair. So you can see in this story, Cal is learning some things, some secrets that his dad has hidden from him on why he raised him without magic the way he did. If you want to read more, here is, have you read The Magisterium, The Iron Trail by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is a fantasy fiction novel. How would you feel if you were lied to for years, or if you had a special talent that your mom and dad hindered and they wouldn't let you practice? Would you trust them? Anyway, in the story, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, this is a Newbery Medal Award for 2017, written by Kelly Barnhill. We have the main character, Luna, who does have magic and is not allowed to practice or know about it till she's 13. What we have in this story was we have a ritual where we have the babies taken from the mother, and they're sacrificed, and they're brought into the forest. And they're sacrificed because they think the witch in the forest is a bad witch, and it turns out that she is a very good witch. What she does is she takes the babies that are sacrificed and abandoned, and she goes to the other side of the forest and finds a good home for them. And she feeds them starlight. Well, one baby she fell in love with, Luna, and instead of feeding her starlight, she fed her moonlight. And that moonlight gave her magic. But Zan, the witch, did not let the child know she had magic until she was 13. Let me read an excerpt from the story so you can see how much compassion Zan had for the little girl Luna. It can't go like this, blurted Fuss. The more magic she gathers, the more magic will spill out. He made funny faces at the girl in spite of himself. Luna giggled like mad. You mark my words, he said, vainly trying to be serious. You don't know that, Zan said. Maybe it will never come out. Maybe things will never be difficult. Despite her tiredness, work, finding homes from abandoned babies, Zan had a deep loathing for difficult things, sorrowful things, and unpleasant things. She preferred not to think of them. If she could help it. She sat with the girl, blowing bubbles. Lovely, lurid, most magical things with pretty colors swirling on their surfaces. The girl chased and caught each bubble on her fingers and set each of them surrounding daily blossoms or butterflies or the leaves of trees. She even climbed inside a particularly large bubble and floated just over the tips of the grass. There was so much beauty, Glurk, Zan said. How can you possibly think about anything else? Glurk shook his head. How long can this last, Zan? Glurk said. The witch refused to answer. Later he held the girl and sang to her to sleep. He could feel the heft of the magic in his arms. He could feel the pulse of the undulation of those great waves of magic, surging inside the child, never finding their way to shore. The witch had told him he was imagining things. She insisted they focus their energies on raising the girl who was by nature a tangle of mischief and motion and curiosity. So you can see in this little piece of the story that Zan, the witch, which she called grandmother, really cared for the little girl. So if you would like to read more, here's the story, The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, a fantasy fiction novel. How would you feel if you woke up in a hospital bed and didn't remember how you got there? Or if you would look at your family and your friends around and not be able to trust them, and you didn't seem quite right? Or if you're laying in your bed at night and your dolls begin to talk to you? Well, in the story, The Cuckoo Song by Frances Hardage. We have our main character Trish, who has a terrible accident, and she wakes up in a hospital bed, not really remembering, have a lot of memory loss, not really remembering who she is, and not really being able to trust her family because everything just seems really weird and awkward. However, she is able to get into a good, well, at the beginning of the story, her and her sister Penn do not have a great relationship. Penn is the one that she can't trust Penn. So I'm going to read an excerpt from the story so you can see the relationship between Penn and Trish. And it does get better throughout the novel, but let's just see how it is now. Who do you think you're kidding? Penn's face was a map of disbelief. She leaned forward and peered into Trish's eyes, her only gaze pit bull fierce. I know about you. I know who you are. I saw you when you climbed out of the grimmer. I was there. You were there. Trish took a step forward, only to see his sister flinch back. Penn, you have to tell me everything you saw. Did you see me fall in? What happened? Oh, stop it, snapped Penn. You think you're really clever, don't you? She swallowed hard and clenched her jaw as if there was nothing she wanted more than to bite somebody. You know what? You're not as clever as you think. You're getting everything just a bit wrong. Everything, all the time. And sooner or later, they'll notice. They'll see. In Penn's face, Trish could see something but a declaration of war. The young girl's incomprehensible words boiled and seethed in Trish's mind like a shower of piranhas, and Trish's desperation was swiftly replaced by a flood of frustration and resentment. She had wanted to be sorry about eating Penn's lunch, had wanted to talk to it about her, but all these feelings were now swallowed up by bitterness and stinging sense of unfairness. It was always this way, she remembered now. She would try to reach out and not be knocked by Penn's ingenious and relentless hatred. So you can see in the story The Cuckoo Song by Frances Herring, which is a paranormal fiction, that Penn and her sister have a very difficult relationship, and that relationship is what brings about a lot of secrets are being revealed and so forth throughout the end of the novel. I would love for you to read The Cuckoo Song by Frances Harding. This wraps up my book talk for EDCI 310, where I have the book of The Boundless by Kenneth Opel. I have Moonkind by Sarah Prentice. I also talked about The Iron Magistrum, The Iron Trail by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare, and Kelly Barnhill's The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and Frances Hardage, The Cuckoo Song. Thank you so much, everyone.